Momotarou Densetsu Gaiden is the last original RPG on the Famicom. Well, original in the sense that this is its first release on a cartridge for the Famicom. However, I'm going to put off the genre retrospective for a few days, because otherwise the episode for the actual final RPG release would be extremely short. Momotarou had already become a minor franchise for Hudson at this point. Their games, starring an irreverent version of the Japanese folk hero, began as one of the first RPGs to follow in the wake of Dragon Quest on the Famicom, and then it shifted over to some pun-based board games. That series of Momotarou games is what really caught on and kept him around. Momotarou Densetsu Gaiden was originally a Game Boy game, and then a year after that a port was released for the PC Engine, and a year after that, this Famicom port came. When you start the game, you're given your choice of 3 scenarios. Each will let you play as one side character from Momotarou Densetsu, and they all have their own story to follow. For most of my playtime, I was going through the scenario for Yashahime, daughter of the King of Hell. Her story is essentially one long dungeon as she climbs out of hell, defeating the minions of a rogue demon. Her scenario is the most standard RPG one. The next character is Bimbogami. He's the god of poverty, and he's been going around stealing money from people. He's hanging out with Momotarou when somebody bursts in asking for help with a greedy feudal lord. And Momotarou thinks that this is a good opportunity for Bimbogami to do some good. His shtick is that he steals money from the people he's fighting. When you beat Bimbogami's scenario, you have to play it over again as a random god, and after you clear it the second time, then you'll get the ending. The final scenario is for Urashima, another character from Japanese folklore. Urashima's story is about dealing with out-of-control tanuki, and as part of that, you've got a mischievous one that follows you around. And rather than helping you as a party member, he'll help the enemies during battle. The hostile party member is something that can happen in Yashahime's scenario as well. At the outset, you pick 3 party members to join you, and one of them prefers to attack your party instead of the enemies. With everyone, as you explore, you can hit A to bring up the menu, and you've got your usual talk, search, use items, equip things. You have to be standing directly on top of something to search it, so keep that in mind when you're opening chests. In towns, you'll have to go to the place marked with the peach in order to save, and each scenario has 2 battery save slots. There's no crossover between the saves either. Towns can also have inns where you'll recover your health, stores where you can buy consumable items, and equipment shops, though only some characters can use equipment. There's no real way to tell before you buy the equipment whether or not someone in your party could use it. Well, except for the characters who have their own specialized equipment, they get shops that have their face behind them. In battle, you can choose to attack, defend, use a magic ability, or use an item. As far as I can tell, nobody starts with magic. You'll have to earn a few levels before you get that. And speaking of earning levels, every character levels up at a different rate. In my party, I had 1 character that leveled up super fast, 2 that leveled up at a normal pace, and 1 that leveled up very slowly. I'm not really sure that this is balanced around their abilities either. It's not like the slow guy was gaining a lot more power with each level. In fact, when I got to the first boss, that fast leveling character was by far the most powerful. Unfortunately, after I defeated the boss, which you can do at level 3 or 4, when you go up to the next floor of the dungeon, you discover that you have to have a spell that you don't obtain until you're level 7. So get ready for some really heavily enforced grinding here. Helping that along, I guess, is the super high encounter rate. You probably won't be able to go more than 5 or 6 steps without getting into another fight. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of enemies in those first few areas, so you have to fight a lot of these same 3 enemies for a long time. Since it was part of a popular series, Momotarou Densetsu is well regarded in Japan, though most players seem to have played the PC Engine version. Most of the praise is heaped on the Yashahime scenario too. People really seem to like the way that you could build many different kinds of parties. I think this is going to be the last time I say this, but the format of Famidaily doesn't really mesh well with RPGs. Even if I was just playing one scenario, It's an 8 to 10 hour process there, and I have about an hour of recording time for each of them. Based on what I did play, Momotarou Densetsu Gaiden really feels like a throwback. This feels like something out of the time of Dragon Quest III, and that does make a kind of sense. It was originally on the Game Boy after all, and that would have limited what they could do. Still, this just feels like a very basic RPG. There are some clever things in it, like Yashihime's party management, but there really isn't that much here. I can't really call it a middle-of-the-road RPG, because it is a bit better than the average ones we've seen on the Famicom. But it's also something I don't see exciting a lot of people.